is I'm going to insert the non-drive side, or the left side cup, and I'm just going to install it just a couple turns. It installs to the right, and this will help guide the main bottom bracket in. Now install the drive side, and it's a reverse thread, so you're actually going to turn it to the left to install. Go ahead and tighten it all the way down. Now tighten the non-drive side down. And you're ready to install the cranks. This is a new type of bottom bracket and crank set. It's a two-piece design. The drive side is connected to the spindle, and then the non-drive side bolts on. You can tell a two-piece crank right away by the fact that the drive side doesn't have a crank bolt. It's just hollow. What you're going to do is remove the non-drive side crank arm. This particular crank here has a self-extracting bolt. When I loosen it, it just pulls itself off. A couple other styles will have a side clamp bolt. Loosen it. If you can't pull it off, maybe take a mallet and tap it off. Once you've got the crank arm off, now you should be able to remove the entire crank off. Go ahead and push it through. If it's stuck, you can take a mallet, give her a good tap. There you go. Pretty neat. Now to remove the bottom bracket, I'm going to actually start with the non-drive side cup. Go ahead and turn it to the left and loosen it a little bit. Now you're ready to remove the drive side. Remember, this is actually reverse thread. You're going to turn it to the right. Go ahead and remove the cup. You can actually start turning the non-drive side at the same time. Now before you install the bottom bracket, make sure that you've cleaned the threads real good and greased them. Go ahead and install the non-drive side cup just a few turns. Place the drive side in. Remember, drive side is reverse thread. It would be lefty tighty, righty loosey. And tighten the drive side all the way. Go ahead and torque it down. Now go ahead and torque the non-drive side. After you've installed the cups, put a light coat of grease on the spindle. Don't forget to put the chain on the frame. Last, install the non-drive side crank. To do a derailleur adjustment, you're going to need a Phillips head screwdriver and an Allen wrench. Your front derailleur moves the chain from one sprocket to another on the crank set with each click of the shifter. There are some road shifters that have what's called a trim click, where the derailleur will just move a little bit just to get chain rub out. To start your derailleur adjustment, first shift the back into the largest cog and shift the front to the smallest ring. Now pull the derailleur cage away from the frame just above the outer sprocket and make sure that it is parallel with it, and also check to see that there is a 1 to 3 millimeter gap between the highest point of the tooth and the bottom of the cage. If not, you can reposition it with the clamp on the side of the derailleur, and you can adjust the angle as well as the height. The front derailleur has two screws called limit screws, and these keep the derailleur from shifting too far. One's labeled low for your low gear, so the smaller sprocket, and the other one's labeled high gear for your bigger sprocket. Loosen the derailleur cable clamp bolt. Before you tighten your derailleur cable down, be sure to back the barrel adjusters all the way in, and then back out about 1 to 2 turns, and this will leave you a little room for adjustment. And now you're going to locate the low limit screw, and you're going to screw it in or out until the inside of the cage to the chain has about a 2 millimeter distance. And now you've adjusted your derailleur starting point. Go ahead and pull the cable taut and tighten the clamp bolt down again. Now shift the rear to the smallest cog and shift the front to the largest sprocket and locate the limit screw labeled high, and you're going to adjust this in or out until there's about a 2 millimeter gap between the outside of the chain and the inside of the cage. Once you've dialed that in, go ahead and shift through the gears, and you can adjust the cable tension either on the shifter or at the clamp bolt. If it's having a hard time coming up, I would maybe increase the cable tension and also check the limit screw. If it's having a hard time going down, then I would check the cable tension and also check the limit screw. If your chains are falling off either on the inside or the outside, it's a good sign that your limit screws aren't adjusted right. When replacing your front derailleur, there's different styles, so make sure that you get the right one. This is a traditional derailleur where the clamp is above the cage. You've got a bottom bracket mount front derailleur, and you have a top swing derailleur where the mount is below the cage. And the next thing you need to know is if the cable pulls from the bottom or from the top. When tightening down your front derailleur, be sure not to clamp it too tight. You can crimp the frame. Most derailleurs today are indexed, which means every click of the shifter, the derailleur will move from one cog to the next. Occasionally you'll find that when you shift the gear, it might not make it to the next gear or possibly even skip a cog. This is a good sign that you might need a derailleur adjustment. Before you get ready to make that derailleur adjustment, of course inspect the cable housing and the cable. Grab the bottom of the derailleur cage and rock it back and forth. Make sure there isn't an excessive amount of play. Check the pulleys real well. There shouldn't be any missing teeth. They shouldn't be bald. The derailleur has an upper and a lower pulley. The upper pulley, known as a floating pulley, actually moves side to side, and then the bottom one has no play side to side at all. So when you replace them, make sure you get the upper and the lower pulley. To do a rear derailleur adjustment, you need a 4, 5, or 6 millimeter Allen key and a Phillips head screwdriver. First, place the chain on the middle sprocket up front, and go ahead and downshift the rear to the smallest cog. This is the resting position for the derailleur. Now we're going to loosen the cable. Okay, every derailleur has 2 limit screws. One for the small cog, labeled the H for the high, and the other screw is for the biggest cog, marked with an L for low gear. This keeps the chain from falling off either the inside or the outside of the gear. We're going to first start with the high screw. We're going to go ahead